You are not a cockroach. Strange.
If Path of Exile has not been on your radar yet, now is probably the best time to start paying attention. The online, free-to-play action RPG from Grinding Gear Games is finally out of open beta, and it is releasing with a bunch of extra features. But is it any good? Is Path of Exile that mouse-spamming, loot-hunting adventure we've all been waiting for? In Path of Exile, the player has been, well, exiled, and is sent to the continent of Wraeclast. There, alone or with other exiles, you must develop your skills and find powerful gear in order to survive. And although the story is nothing specifically interesting, the more important atmosphere is excellent. Path of Exile is dark, gritty, and realistic, as you crawl through hordes of enemies haunting jails and explore underground dungeons with the crackling of bones from the skeletal monsters in the distance. For the most part, Path of Exile is impressive to look at, with solid animations, spell effects, and again just a pleasingly dark atmosphere that especially fans of the famous Diablo classics will enjoy. And that is certainly not the only aspects Diablo 1 and 2 fans will find pleasing. Or any other action RPG fans, for that matter. As you make your way across the coast filled with shipwrecks and marshlands, eventually reaching jungle areas filled with, of course, bloodlusty primates and numerous dungeons filled with all kinds of nasty bugs, you must of course be able to actually defend yourself. And most importantly, destroy everything in your sights. Combat in Path of Exile has a good amount of impact behind it and comes in a variety of different colors and shapes. Initially, you must pick from one of 7 different classes, with the latest one having just been added on release. These classes are all aligned differently, distributed between strength, dexterity, and intelligence, and these 3 attributes will be your main guide throughout the game. Interestingly, classes will all start with different quest rewards leading into different abilities, but every class can potentially use every single spell or skill in the game. The way this works is through so-called skill gems. Unlike most common action RPGs, Path of Exile does not have a linear skill system preordained by your class. Instead, you are given and will find numerous differently colored skill gems. Red for strength, green for dexterity, and blue for intelligence. These are your only source of active abilities in Path of Exile. In order to use them, you must place a gem inside an appropriate socket on a piece of gear you are using, which introduces a lot of interesting limitations in and of itself, as there is of course only so much you can equip. These gems will give you anything from summoning minions to good old fireballs, and will gain experience as you gain experience, allowing you to level them up, making them more powerful at the cost of generally extra mana required. These skill gems are a relatively unique play on abilities in action RPGs, and the system works extremely well, as you can even have support gems that can change and upgrade your skill gems when properly linked together within items. From say making single target spells attack with multiple projectiles, or granting abilities elemental effects. Meaning there is quite a lot to look for here. Oh, and of course you can also trade these with other players. However, this isn't all. Every class will start on a different location within the giant web that is the passive skill tree. This tree, existing of over 1,000 different nodes, all gain different bonuses to your character, with 1 point being awarded every level. Most of these nodes are relatively straightforward, increasing certain damage types or increasing your health pool, which is crucial when min-maxing a character, but vastly more interesting are the bigger nodes, the keystones, that can quite dramatically change the way you play. Say, reducing your entire health pool to 1, forcing you to drastically focus on a different defense. Now, for a new player, these systems can be a little overwhelming. However, Path of Exile has 3 different difficulty types, and it is then certainly possible to make your way through normal, while more or less just going for whatever you think works. On that note, Path of Exile is not an easy game, and you will find plenty of good challenge on the normal difficulty alone. But both the gems and passive skill tree are just fantastic. They allow for a huge variation of builds, and Path of Exile then has layers of depth when it comes down to customizing your abilities and playstyle, allowing you to go about how to tackle this game in a multitude of different ways and promoting some very creative builds. This is even more so promoted by the itemization system in Path of Exile, with unique items having all kinds of interesting properties that can completely make a build. Even on a basic level though, Path of Exile does something different here, as you will find no piles of gold flying out of monsters you slay. Path of Exile instead relies on a full trade system where selling off items to NPCs will reward you with various scrolls and orbs. These scrolls and orbs can then be used to identify items or upgrade them in a variety of ways, and are also in certain cases highly sought after in trade with other players. Meaning you won't end up with piles of useless and meaningless money, but items that can always be useful in some way, resulting in Path of Exile having a very intertwined gameplay and economy that especially those looking for multiplayer interaction will find highly enjoyable. As I mentioned earlier, Path of Exile has 3 difficulties, and in addition has 2 standard leagues. The, Standard League and Hardcore League. But every 4 months, 2 new leagues will be added, granting new difficulties and a fresh economy. These leagues tend to have a bit of a twist and will remain there until the next new leagues arrive. If you would rather remain in one of the standard leagues, however, there is plenty to do, as the game is divided into 3 acts that all have a variety of quests and bosses for you to hunt down, with completion unlocking the next difficulty. Meaning that, all in all, there is quite a lot of content. Now, Path of Exile is of course free to play, and this is in fact one of its best selling points, as Path of Exile is certainly the most fair to play game I have encountered in a long time. Path of Exile is extremely customer friendly. The free to play aspects never feel mandatory or otherwise never break the pacing of the game. Path of Exile has an in-game shop that mainly just includes fancy new spell effects, a variety of pets or effects for your weaponry, which are all purely cosmetic. You can additionally buy services such as more character or stash slots, but Path of Exile already gives you so much space. Anyone looking to get into the game will never feel the need to buy these or otherwise feel burdened by the free-to-play limitations, as there virtually are none. Path of Exile is a game that I have been happily playing on and off ever since the closed beta, and I don't regret a minute of it. The game has a fantastic atmosphere and solid gameplay with a ton of depth. If you are looking for an action RPG where you can make vastly different characters, this is going to be it. Yes, there are a few small negative points, such as there being a time limit on map instances, meaning if you take too long you can end up having to re-explore zones you've been through, or the gameplay can at times feel a little sluggish as you cannot cancel out of animations. Meaning, especially when you are frozen, it can be annoying that your character will still carry out that ability you wanted him to do 5 seconds ago, but now have no more need for as the enemy kind of walked away. But these points are largely insignificant. I can confidently say Path of Exile is the most enjoyable action RPG on the market right now. Better yet, it is completely free to play with what is probably the best free to play model in a long time. I would then heartily recommend this game to any and everyone. It might require a few trips to the wiki to figure everything out, but even if you are just jumping in, you should be fine in clicking your way across the entirety of the normal difficulty, gathering some great loot along the way. With great gameplay, a great model, and so much potential, Path of Exile gets a 10 out of 10.